Samsung Galaxy S22 in late 2024. Let's go ahead and talk about this device. So there's a lot of exciting things about the S22 series coming up with the One UI 7 update. The beta should be coming in maybe another month or two. So that'll be exciting. I'll be covering that. And then also the price of this phone. This phone typically falls in the range of around $250 to $230 depending on the condition. It could be even cheaper if you get an acceptable version here. And yeah, so it's, as you can see, acceptable, you know, 200. So it's even as cheap as 200 these days. It's a pretty nice phone to look at, but a lot of people actually, you know, don't like this phone for one particular reason, which we're going to talk about. And we can kind of talk about how to, you know, save battery life on this phone, because that's like the biggest complaint here. So let's go ahead and talk about it, because some people say that they're a lighter user, they don't really have that issue with the screen on time on this phone. Now, you do have a very nice design, especially compared to what you would get for, you know, $250 A series phone or something like that, something cheaper from Samsung, right? One of their cheaper mid-rangers or something like that. And it looks really good. Still that nice cutout. You also have a matte finish on here, and the thing that a lot of people like about these base model Galaxy phones is they simply, you know, are very easy to hold here. This is a phone that you can easily one hand. So if you're somebody who you don't like to use the bigger phones, then this is a phone that you can easily, you know, handle without kind of straining your hand or anything like that. The display on here is very nice as well. We have really nice bezels on the S22. It gives you that nice premium experience on here. It's a 1080p panel at 6.1 inches, dynamic AMOLED, HDR10 plus. We also do have 1300 nits brightness on here as well, and the panel is pretty good. Gorilla Glass Victus. I don't really have any like scratches on this display, any deep scratches at least, so it's been holding up since I got it. And yeah, so overall this panel is fantastic. The max brightness is decent. It's not crazy good like, you know, something like the 1700 nit displays, but this is fine in direct sunlight. It's not the worst. And yeah, the panel on here is really nice looking, as you guys can see. Color wise, 120 hertz on here, very smooth. So I really like the panel. It still gives a very luxury feel to it. And let's talk about the overall software and the overall speed of this phone. So we're on the latest patch for this T-Mobile version, at least on Android 6.1, and we can see our single core and multi-core scores here. This has the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, and it's overall a decent processor. It's really not that bad if you're a lighter user. A lot of people do not like this processor simply because of the heating issues or, you know, stuff like that. I have never experienced any type of performance problems with any of the S22 phones, but again, I am a lighter user. I'm not a heavy user. I'm not a gamer or anything like that. So when we're talking about animations, loading up applications, and overall with these updates, this phone has been performing pretty well as far as just overall speed, and I expect for the One UI 7 update to actually help with speed and battery life and stuff like that as well too. So like I said, this update could be promising because the S24 Ultra is doing fantastic on that update as far as battery and animations and stuff like that. So if anything, this phone has the potential to actually get a lot better when it comes to performance here. But again, we have the 128 gigs of internal storage and 8 gigs of RAM on this phone. When it comes to performance on here, this is a very comfortable phone to do some, you know, gaming on. We can still play PUBG at 90 frames, and it's pretty smooth. And just, you know, just using it now, it is a little bit warm. It's not anything like uncomfortable to the touch, but if you kind of play games for hours and hours, it's gonna take a hit to your battery life. And overall, you could have some performance problems. Like I said, I've never had a actual performance problem with the S22. So it really depends on the person when it comes to performance, because the 8 Gen 1 processor is really not as bad as people make it seem. Yeah, of course, if you're pushing it to its limits, then you might have that, you know, kind of performance problem. But honestly, I think for most people, guys, the processor is fine, right? And as far as like, even if it's getting a little bit warm, most people are going to have a case on it, so they really won't notice it. And if it's getting warm and it's not stuttering or crashing or anything like that, it's really not that big of a deal for me. So Yeah, so overall the gaming experience is fine. Like, I've been able to play PUBG, come in here, play PUBG match, Call of Duty, you know, just do regular stuff perfectly fine on this phone. So yeah, so performance wise, I think it's still, you know, it's a great phone still. I've done a ton of comparisons with the S22 this year, and the cameras still look very, very good. Even compared to something like the iPhone 14, even something like the Pixel, you still get really good shots, really good video. There's no way anyone could look at these shots and say that this phone doesn't take pretty good shots. Dynamic range is great. The ultra wide is very, you know, consistent with the main lens. Colors look really nice. You get that, you know, Samsung look with the very vibrant color pattern on here. And then we also have a 50 megapixel standard, 10 megapixel telephoto, pretty good zoom on here. We do have 30 times zoom with that 3 times optical, 12 megapixel ultra wide. It can shoot in 8K 24. And then we also have 10 megapixel selfie that can shoot in 4K 60. So, you know, camera wise, this is pretty good. Even the video is solid, good dynamic range, good detail. For this price point, overall, these cameras have aged pretty well. I would say, if anything, maybe the low light photography could be a little bit better, right? Compared to the newer phones. It can be a little bit soft sometimes, but overall, I think these shots are, I mean, they're pretty good in my opinion. Let's check out these speakers on the S22. The speakers on the S22 aren't terrible. They're just kind of decent speakers. It's nothing really, you know, too, you know, amazing about the speaker quality on here. There's a decent amount of bass. Overall sound quality is good. If you turn Dolby Atmos on as well, turn Dolby Atmos off, let you guys hear what that sounds like without. So overall, you know, the speakers are decent. The fingerprint scanner is excellent on here, guys. It's the ultrasonic one, and it's fantastic. Very fast. You can also use your face unlock as well too. 22 has been pretty amazing so far, especially for the price that you can get this phone at now. But now we gotta talk about the one negative thing of this phone, and that is the battery life is really not that great on the S22. We're talking about around 4 hours of screen on time, which is well below average. Around 4 hours and 30 minutes really. But there are certain things you can do as far as preserving your battery life. But in general, you know, this phone is just going to have below average, you know, battery life. It's not going to be great. So the size of the battery here, it's a smaller battery at 3700 milliamps. We have 25-watt charging on here as well. And then we also have wireless and reverse wireless charging on the S22. Like I said, the screen on time, it's not great. It's a phone that you would have to charge, right? If you're doing like heavier tasks. As a lighter user, you could probably, I've seen, and this is from what I've seen in the comments, you can get away with this phone as a lighter user if you're just, you know, on TikTok or, you know, doing just normal stuff, watching YouTube videos. You might play like a light game, Subway Surfer here and there, you know, web browser, take a picture from time to time. It's not like it's terrible. It's not like it's gonna die in 2 hours or something like that. But the battery life is just, you know, it's not that great. So that's the only drawback with this particular phone. Now, if you do go ahead and want to spend that extra money, you can get a Galaxy S23. But like I said, people in different countries, it's a big deal when you're talking about an extra $100, an extra, you know, $150 or something like that. So you see Galaxy S23 is a little bit more expensive, and you do have other options like a S23 FE, but that's going to be a bigger phone. So as I said, it's a very interesting phone. One way you can get around this is you can get a battery pack for your phone or a battery case. I think that's like will cost you $30 or something like that. You get a battery case. Make sure you set your charge limit to 80 so you don't ruin the battery health. But that's one way you can kind of get around like the battery life on here, is kind of charge it up if you having like a day where it's going to be a heavy day of taking photos, videos and stuff like that. But it's a decent phone. I'm curious to see what you guys think. Would you guys buy this phone, or would you just, hold off and spend that extra money on an S23?